a comment on Facebook from Linda up in Poughkeepsie, New York. And so she's got a question about 1 Corinthians chapter 14, 34 through 36, which I'll read here in a minute. But her question just is simply, why does it say for women to keep silent? So I'll just read the verse says, the women should keep silent in churches. They're not permitted to speak, but should be in submission, as the law also says. If there's anything they desire to learn, let them ask their husbands at home, for it's shameful for women to speak in church. Or was it from you that the word of God came, or are you the only ones it has reached? That's 1 Corinthians 14, 34 to 36. So is this saying women can't speak in churches, Pastor Lloyd?
Obviously not. You have quite a number of women that were actually prophetesses, so they would not naturally have an outlet of some sort. In the Corinthian church, there was a unique situation that Paul was addressing. And the unique situation was in that Gentile world that subjugated women quite a bit, women were seeing this amazing freedom. I mean, the fact that the first witness of the resurrection was a woman, Mary, and Mary Magdalene, and the other women. It's a powerful picture of the Lord saying the value of women. So when Paul's writing this, most churches were kind of like set up by synagogues because the way they did it before, that you had the men on one side, the women on the other side for all decency. And when the preacher was preaching, a man, a woman might have a question and would yell out, the question instead of wait till she got home with her husband, and it kind of became a little disordered. They took their freedom a little too far.
Sure.
So it sounds very demeaning to women when you read it in the context of our 21st century, but in that day, it's actually amazing that the women had the capacity and the ability to be there with the men and to be a part of that. But he's trying to bring some, because he's already describing other distractions. It's really in the context of other distractions in the church. This was just another distraction. Women, instead of waiting to talk to their husband at home, it's hard to hear. People are asking questions. So it just became a little bit out of order.
Yeah, and most of the time, Pastor Lloyd, I think that when we see these types of questions or when we see these things in the scriptures, you tend to lean towards or say, oh my goodness, what Paul was a misogynist, or he was this or that, right? And we infuse what we hear, I think, in today's culture, and we say, oh my goodness, or we won't say this, but people will say, here or there, the other thing. How do you, when you're navigating that in your reading, how important context is?
If the atheist society and all of the famous atheists who wrote books had the same scrutiny on their personal life,
right,
we'd be having a whole different discussion. The level of, darkness in so many of these lives, and most people don't even know, from Bertrand Russell, who was a famous one. These people were bad people, selfish, arrogant, and yet in their persona they became world famous because they took a stand against God, and they had no problems at all. Look, we don't need God, but if you look at their lives, they're a mess. So I really believe that the Bible has a lot of scrutiny because it makes bold claims that people don't want to hear because we're in rebellion against God. So naturally, they're going to jump on any little thing that looks like it doesn't fit our culture, it looks unfair. The whole slavery thing is another thing, as if the Bible promotes slavery, and nothing could be further from the truth. When you think about the abolition movement, that came out of Christianity to see these people were people made in God's image and worthy of equality and respect. And man, they were hounded and beaten. I mean, the Christians that wanted freedom for the slaves, I mean, they took a lot of heat. And, but at the end of the day, it's like, look, the Word of God is powerful. Ultimately, when you just keep reading, you see the full context of it. So don't just settle on some of these questions that people have to focus on one thing without putting the whole context together.
Yeah, absolutely. And to that point, because the slavery one's a big issue when you look at, how Paul deals with it in the New Testament, or people would say doesn't deal with it, if you will. Right? God has always operated inside of...
I think he did beautifully with the book of Philemon.
Yeah.
He's writing to Philemon, a slave owner, having met his runaway slave in prison, leads him to the Lord, and sends Onesimus back to his former owner with a letter saying, treat him as a brother.
Yeah.
You can't get better than that.
No. No, I agree.